My sister publicly betrayed me and ruined our family, then came back begging for help. I let her stay, but gave her 1 month to prove she'd changed. What happened next left me questioning everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and forgiveness. I'm not going anywhere, she said, arms wrapped tight around her body, trembling in the rain like some ghost from my past. Please, just let me in. I hadn't seen my sister, Marissa, in 2 years. Not since the day she stood up in front of a crowded room, our whole family, her friends, coworkers, and called me a liar. Said I was making up stories for attention. That I was bitter, jealous, pathetic. And all of it? Because I told the truth? Because I risked everything to pull her out of hell. She was 22 then, dating this guy named Brandon. Charming, confident, the kind of guy people fawned over without looking too closely. But I saw the bruises. The way she flinched when his name lit up her phone. The excuses that didn't track. I'd seen this kind of fear before. In our mom. Different man, same silence. So I got involved. I didn't wait. I showed up at her place one night, and what I saw, it still haunts me. The fear in her eyes. The red blooming on her cheek. The way she mouthed "don't" when I pulled out my phone. I didn't care. I called the cops. I pressed charges when she wouldn't. I took the heat from Brandon's friends, from our family, from her. Especially her. Marissa never forgave me. She said I'd ruined her life. That she had it under control. And worst of all, she said it publicly. At a family barbecue of all places when our mom asked where I'd been lately. I wasn't even talking about her. But she launched into me like she'd been waiting for the chance. You think you're some kind of hero? She spat, loud enough for the entire backyard to hear. You think you're better than me? You're not. You just love having something to fix. But I'm not broken. I left before I said something I'd regret. I blocked her number. And when she tried once or twice after that half-hearted, angry little messages, I ignored them. That was 2 years ago. And now here she was, standing on my porch in a hoodie soaked through, her face thinner, older. That same bruise-shaped ghost lingering around her eyes. Why now? I asked her. I didn't raise my voice. Just asked it plain and cold. She looked down. He found me again. I tried to leave last year, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. Her lip quivered and I felt something in my gut twist. I hated that it twisted. I hated that it still worked, that part of me that wanted to protect her. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there, the threshold between us thick with everything we hadn't said in 2 years. You burned the bridge, Marissa, I said finally. You didn't just walk away, you lit the match. She didn't argue. Just nodded, slow. I know. But I didn't know what else to do. I could hear the past screaming in the back of my head. The yelling. The lies. The moment I realized I wasn't the brother anymore, I was the scapegoat. The punching bag. The disposable one. But then she whispered, I'm not asking you to forgive me. Just, please don't leave me out here. The rain picked up. My hand hovered near the door. Was I really about to let her in? The silence between us wasn't just awkward, it was crushing. Like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the ground behind you is on fire, but the jump ahead might still kill you. She looked so small. Not just wet and cold, but diminished. Like someone had been slowly chipping away at her for years and now there wasn't much left. I should have closed the door. I should have told her I wasn't her backup plan. That she made her bed and Brandon could be the one to lie beside her until it ate her alive. But I didn't. I stepped aside. She walked in without a word, dripping onto the hardwood, arms still crossed like she was afraid to unfold them. My dog, Max, barked from the living room, confused. He didn't recognize her. Neither did I, not really. I'll get you a towel, I muttered, already regretting it. She sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite her. When I handed her the towel, her fingers brushed mine. Cold. Too cold. Thanks, she whispered, looking straight ahead like if she met my eyes, she'd shatter. I stood awkwardly in the kitchen, watching her from the side. My home quiet, warm, predictable, felt invaded. Not violently. Just unsettled. You hungry? I asked. It felt mechanical, like my brain was trying to default to something normal. She nodded. I haven't really eaten today. It was already after 9. I warmed up some soup, chicken and rice, not homemade or impressive, but hot. She took the bowl with shaking hands and muttered another thanks. We didn't talk while she ate. I just sat across from her, arms folded, one knee bouncing with nerves. Part of me wanted to ask everything. Where had she been? Why hadn't she left him sooner? Did she remember what she said to me? Did she care? But I didn't ask. Not yet. When the bowl was empty, she pushed it forward, wiped her mouth, and said, You can ask me anything. I know you want to. I blinked. You sure about that? She nodded, but her eyes flinched. All right, I said. Why'd you lie about me? That was the first cut. She didn't answer right away. just stared down at her hands. I wasn't lying, she finally whispered. Not to them. I was lying to myself. I let out a bitter laugh. That's a nice excuse. Public humiliation counts either way. I know, she said, and this time she looked at me. Really looked. But if I admitted you were right, that meant admitting I'd let myself stay with a man who hit me. That I needed saving. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them. She just let them fall. I couldn't handle that truth. So I made you the villain. I didn't say anything. Just sat there, absorbing it. I'm not here because I want to be, she continued. I'm here because I'm out of options. That's not fair to you. But it's the truth. I could tell she meant it. And that somehow made it worse. Truth is, part of me wanted her to be lying. Manipulating. That would have been easier to walk away from. But this? This was someone crawling back with open wounds, asking to be seen. To be forgiven. Maybe even saved again. The question burned in my throat like acid. If I let her stay, what would that make me? A fool? A hero? Her safety net yet again? Or just her brother? I didn't sleep that night. Marissa crashed on the couch, curled up in an old blanket like a stray who didn't know if she'd be allowed to stay. I stood in the hallway for a long time, just watching her chest rise and fall. Part of me expected her to vanish like she was just some guilt-woven ghost conjured by bad memories. But morning came and she was still there. I made coffee the way I always did, 2 scoops, a dash of cinnamon, nothing fancy. She used to love that smell. Said it reminded her of winter mornings when things were still good. Yeah? She didn't even flinch when it hit the air. She sat at the kitchen table, quiet, wrapped in that same blanket, her hair tangled and her face drawn. Her fingers trembled when she reached for the mug I slid toward her. You still put cinnamon in it, she said, barely above a whisper. I never stopped. We sat in silence for a while. The kind that says more than small talk ever could. I could feel her looking at me like she wanted to say something, but every word got caught in her throat. Finally, she spoke. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. Good, I said without flinching. Because they won't. That caught her. She blinked, then looked down into her cup like it had the answers she needed. She started, then stopped. No, I cut in. Let's not do that. Don't start something you're not willing to finish. Her jaw tensed. I was going to say, I just want to earn back your trust. That's all. I tilted my head. Earn it how? She didn't answer right away. You want to stay here, I said flatly. So say that. She looked up. Her eyes were raw. I want to stay here. And you want me to forget what you said to me? What you let them say? No, she shook her head. I don't want you to forget. I just hope you'll believe that I'm not that person anymore. I leaned back in my chair, arms folded, heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to jump ship. You don't get to rewrite history, Marissa. You made me the villain so you wouldn't have to look in the mirror. I know, she said quietly. And I live with that every day. That stopped me. Because it didn't sound like an excuse. It sounded like a scar. And for the first time in years, I saw her, not the version I'd built out of betrayal and fury, but the real her. The broken, bruised, desperate person I'd tried to help once and maybe still wanted to help now. But that didn't mean I could just open the gates and pretend the flood never happened. So I laid it out. You can stay here. But this isn't a second chance. This is a test. She nodded slowly, accepting the terms. I don't trust you. Not yet. And if I get even a hint of manipulation or guilt-tripping, you're gone. I understand. No late-night texts to mom trying to clear the air. No flipping the script. No gaslighting. If you're here, it's because you've got nowhere else. That's it. Tears welled in her eyes again, but she didn't cry this time. She just nodded. Okay. And don't expect me to fix you. I'm not your savior. I'm just the guy who opened a door when you were drowning. Her voice cracked as she said, thank you. I stared at her for a long moment, then stood up and turned toward the hallway. 1 month, I said over my shoulder. After that, we'll see. And with that, I left her at the kitchen table, alone, clutching a mug like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. I didn't know if I was making the right choice. But for the first time, I was doing it on my terms. The first week was quiet. Too quiet. Marissa kept to herself mostly. She washed her dishes, folded the blanket she slept with, offered to help with groceries even though she didn't have $1 to her name. It felt rehearsed. Like someone trying to play the part of grateful guest, just right so the act wouldn't get cut. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But old instincts die hard. I'd come home from work and find her on the porch with Max, rubbing behind his ears like she used to when she was still just my annoying kid sister who couldn't cook toast but somehow always burned eggs. Max likes me again, she said one evening with a shy smile. I gave a shrug. Max likes anyone who gives him peanut butter. She didn't laugh at that. Just looked down and I immediately felt like a jerk. But I didn't apologize. Because deep down, part of me was still waiting for the mask to crack. That moment came faster than I expected. It started with a voicemail. My phone buzzed late one night. I was brushing my teeth when I saw the name, Uncle Rob. Haven't heard from him in over a year. I let it go to voicemail, assuming it was some delayed birthday thing or maybe a chain prayer. But curiosity got me. I listened. Hey kiddo, I'm not trying to stir anything up, but I heard Marissa's staying with you. She told Janet the two of you patched things up and you're helping her start fresh. Said you apologized for everything that happened back then. That true? My stomach dropped. I played it again. And again. Apologized? I stormed out of the bathroom and found her sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a job listing site on my old laptop like she belonged there. I dropped my phone on the table. You been talking to Janet? She looked up confused. Who? Uncle Rob's wife. Her eyes darted and I saw it just a flicker. A crack. Oh yeah. She messaged me. I didn't say much, just that I was staying with you. Funny, I said, my voice tightening because Rob seems to think I apologized to you. That we patched things up. You spreading that? She swallowed. I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't want people thinking you were still mad at me. I leaned forward, palms flat on the table. Marissa, I told you. This isn't a PR rehab. You don't get to spin a comeback story using my house like it's a stage. Her eyes went glassy. I wasn't trying to, eh? Stop, I snapped. Just stop. If you can't tell the truth to them, fine. But don't lie about me to make yourself look better. She didn't argue. Just bit her lip and nodded like a child who'd been caught with a hand in the jar. But that moment stuck with me like a thorn. That was the first crack. The first time I wondered if she'd really changed or if she'd just learned how to wear guilt like perfume. Something to mask the rot. That night, I slept with one eye open. Not out of fear, but out of weariness. She had a way of draining the air from a room without even trying. And I couldn't help but wonder. If she's already bending the truth, what else is she hiding? I wish I could say that was the only red flag. But you know how patterns work. They don't walk in, they seep under the door, drip by drip, until you realize the floor's already soaked. A few days after the voicemail incident, I noticed something strange with the mail. I'd left a small stack of unopened envelopes on the side table, nothing urgent, mostly ads and a couple of bills. But when I went to grab one of them, the pile was thinner. I asked casually, hey, you see some mail here earlier? Marissa didn't even blink. Yeah, just toss the junk. Hope that's okay. It wasn't. I didn't say it out loud, but it wasn't. Because mixed into that stack was a credit card offer I'd been planning to use for a balance transfer. And a dental bill I needed for tax purposes. I kept it cool. Next time, just let me sort through it. She nodded, over-apologizing. Of course, sorry. I was just trying to help. That phrase, just trying to help, used to mean something when we were kids. Like when I had the flu and she microwaved me a questionable bowl of canned soup and then stood guard outside my room like she was a bodyguard. But now it felt like a shield. Something she threw up whenever she crossed a line. 2 days later, it happened again. This time, I came home and found her on my laptop. Not job hunting this time, she had 3 tabs open, Facebook, Instagram, and a chat with someone named Lexi. I wasn't spying. She didn't even minimize the windows when I walked in. What's up? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She looked up and gave me a sheepish smile. Just catching up with Lexi. She wanted to know how things are going. Lexi used to be her roommate back when she lived with Brandon. The one who conveniently vanished once things got ugly. She know you're here? Marissa hesitated. She does now. I nodded slowly. And what did you tell her? She tilted her head, that same defensive tension creeping into her voice. That you let me stay. That we're working things out. Working things out. Like this was couples therapy and not a survival crash pad. Marissa, I said carefully, are you trying to rebuild your image or your life? She looked wounded. Why can't it be both? Because one of those requires honesty. The other just needs Wi-Fi and the right filter. Her jaw tightened. She closed the laptop with more force than necessary. I'm doing my best, she said, standing. Sorry if it's not enough. Then she walked past me up the stairs, shoulders stiff like I'd shoved her. I stood there in the kitchen, feeling this ugly mix of guilt and déjà vu. It was the same dance we always did. She'd blur the truth, I'd confront her, and somehow I'd end up feeling like the bad guy. I didn't follow her. Instead, I sat at the table and pulled up my own browser history. And there it was, one tab I hadn't opened. My online banking login. She hadn't typed anything. But the URL was there. She'd hovered. I stared at that screen for a long time. The trust one was trying to build? It cracked a little more. And that night, I put a password lock on my laptop and moved my important files to the cloud. Because I knew that look in her eye, the hunger for control, for something to hold onto. And I knew what came next. This wasn't about safety anymore. It was about power. I came home early that Friday. I wasn't supposed to. The office lost power mid-afternoon and we all got sent home, grumbling about unfinished reports and fried routers. I didn't even text Marissa on the way back. I figured she'd still be buried in job boards or zoning out on the porch with Max. But when I walked through the door, the house was too quiet. Not peaceful. Just off. And that's when I noticed my bedroom door. It was open. I never leave it open. I moved quickly. Not rushed, but with purpose. Like my body already knew what I didn't want to admit. And there she was. In my room. Sitting at my desk. With my bank statements on the screen. She jumped up like a kid caught stealing cookies, hands half raised like she could rewind time with a gesture. I didn't mean to. Don't, I said, cold and flat. The kind of tone that even she couldn't charm her way around. I was just looking at that. Banking records. Yeah. I can see that. Her face flushed deep red. I wasn't going to touch anything. I saw something in the mail about overdraft protection and I thought maybe you were having trouble and... You thought I was having trouble? I snapped. That's your story? She hesitated. I wanted to make sure I wasn't being a burden. That's rich, I muttered, backing away from the desk. You invade my room, go through my private files, and somehow spin it like you're worried about me? She blinked fast, but I didn't care if she cried. Not this time. This was the rule, I said, voice rising. This right here. You don't touch my stuff. You don't lie. You don't manipulate. And now you're 3 for 3. She shook her head, voice cracking. I wasn't trying to manipulate you, I swear. I just needed to know how long I had. How much time I could stay before you gave up on me. I stared at her. Something twisted deep in my chest. Not pity. Not even anger. Disgust. Here's the thing, Marissa, I said. You don't get to measure people's grace like a ticking clock. You don't earn time by snooping through bank accounts. That's not how trust works. She looked like she wanted to argue, to plead, to cry. But I didn't give her the chance. I want you out by Sunday. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I mean it. I'll give you some cash to get to a motel or friend's place or wherever. But you're not staying here. She took a shaky breath. You don't mean that. I do. You said 1 month. And you broke the deal. You lied to family. You poked around my stuff. You told people I apologized when I didn't. She covered her face with her hands. Please, I have nowhere else. You had a clean slate, I said. You had one person left who was still willing to try. And instead of owning your story, you twisted mine. I walked out, heart pounding, fists clenched. Max followed me down the hall, sensing the tension, glancing back toward her room with soft whines. And in that moment, I realized. It wasn't just that she'd broken my trust again. It was that she never stopped trying to survive by turning everyone else into a mirror. Her truth only existed if it looked good from the outside. And I refused to be her reflection anymore. She left on Sunday. No fight. No drama. Just a note on the kitchen table scrawled in messy black pen. I get it now. I really do. I don't blame you. There was no signature. Just those words, heavy and hollow. I found her bedroom empty by noon. Blanket folded, pillow fluffed, closet bare except for the wire hangers. She hadn't taken the cash I left in the envelope on the counter. I checked 3 times. For the first time in weeks, the house was still. But peace doesn't always feel good right away. Sometimes it feels like absence. Like standing in a room where someone used to be and noticing how quiet the air is without their breath. I kept thinking about that look on her face when I told her to leave. That mix of disbelief and shame. Not because she'd been caught, but because I hadn't flinched this time. Because I'd meant it. Monday rolled in gray and wet. I called out of work, said I had a migraine. I didn't. I just didn't want to sit under fluorescent lights pretending I was okay while Excel sheets blurred in front of me. I kept expecting my phone to buzz. Some apology. Some guilt-tripped plea. Nothing. By Wednesday, I cracked and called our mom. Just checking in, I said, trying to sound casual. Oh, she said, already cautious. Is this about Marissa? That told me everything. You've heard from her? She showed up Tuesday night. Said she just needed a place to crash for a while. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see it. And you said yes? She's my daughter, Alex. I didn't say the next part out loud, so am I. And yet, Mom exhaled sharply. She told me what happened. said she messed up. That you caught her looking at your bank stuff. I stayed silent. She said she was scared. Mom added, softer now. Not of you. Just of being abandoned again. That's not fear, I said flat. That's control dressed up in a sob story. There was a long pause on the line. You think she's just playing us? Mom asked. I didn't answer right away, 'cause deep down I didn't know anymore. Maybe not on purpose, I said. But she's always been better at survival than truth. Mom sighed. Well, I don't know what to do with her. You don't have to. She does. Another pause. Then, quietly, do you hate her? That hit harder than I expected. No, I said. But I don't trust her either. And that's where we left it. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time, the house echoing with everything she didn't say. That night I went to bed early. Max curled up at my feet, warm and loyal and blissfully silent. But sleep didn't come, because even though she was gone, one question kept circling like a hawk overhead. Was I protecting myself? Or just giving up on someone who needed me? The letter arrived a week later. Not an email, not a text. An actual handwritten envelope, creased at the corners, no return address, just my name in familiar looping script. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Something about paper felt heavier, more deliberate, like it was written by someone who didn't trust themselves with the speed of technology. Inside, 2 pages, lined notebook paper folded once. I know you're tired of me apologizing. And honestly, I'm tired of it too. Because it's always too late. Always reaction instead of change. I don't know how to break that pattern, but I think maybe this is where it starts. Saying something and meaning it even if no one's listening. I didn't come to you because I wanted to be saved. I came because I was scared I had no one left who remembered who I used to be. And you did. You remembered. Even after everything. I didn't expect you to let me stay. I didn't expect you to forgive me. But you opened the door anyway. And I wasn't ready for that kind of grace. So I panicked. Fell back into habits that feel safe, even when they're ugly. You told me I survive by making mirrors. That hit me like a truck. Because you're right, I reflect what I think people need me to be. Strong, weak, grateful, broken. Whatever keeps them from seeing the truth. But I'm not writing this to fix anything. I'm writing because I finally understand the weight of what I've done. Not just to you, but to every version of myself I've betrayed along the way. You deserved better. And I'm sorry you had to build your peace in the shadow of my chaos. I'm staying with Mom for now. I'm keeping my distance, not because you asked, but because I think we both need it. Just, if you ever wonder if you mattered to me, you did. More than I ever said. Thank you for opening the door. Love, Marissa. Asterisk. I read it twice. 3 times. Then folded it up and put it back in the envelope like it might vanish if I stared too hard. For the first time since she left, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. I just felt sad. Not the kind of sadness that wants revenge. The kind that mourns what could have been. What was lost before we ever had the language to name it. Later that night, I walked Max around the block, the letter tucked inside my jacket. The wind was sharp, the kind that wakes you up without asking permission. And I realized something I hadn't let myself admit until now. She was trying. In her own broken, backward way, she really was trying. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a fool for hoping. Just human. 3 weeks passed. No messages. No calls. Just the letter, folded and creased, tucked into the back of my desk drawer like some fragile relic of emotional honesty. I didn't rush to reply. I didn't even know if I would. But every few days, I'd find myself rereading it. Not because I missed her, but because something about her words felt unfinished. Like the door wasn't open, but it also wasn't locked anymore. Then, out of nowhere, Mom called. She's moving out, she said. Got a room near the bookstore downtown. Small place. Cheap. I waited. She said not to ask you for anything. Said she's figuring it out. That part surprised me. Not the moving out, that was inevitable. But the fact that Marissa didn't try to loop me in. She okay? I asked. She's quieter, Mom said. Different. She keeps to herself, doesn't ask for favors. But she's working again. Part-time. I think she's trying not to mess this up. I nodded more to myself than to her. Good. There was a pause, like Mom didn't know if she should say what came next. She asked me to give you something. She said you'd understand. Later that night, I found a small padded envelope in my mailbox. No note, no explanation. Just a USB drive. Inside were dozens of photos. Scans of drawings, some rough, some detailed. All of them familiar. Sketches of us. As kids. In the treehouse. On the porch. The way she remembered things, not always accurate, but always real. Her perspective. She used to draw all the time before Brandon. Before the walls went up. I didn't even know she still had it in her. The final photo was different. A painting clearly done more recently. Dark colors. Our family home in the background, but faded like a memory, and in front of it 2 silhouettes standing apart, but connected by a thin red thread. At the bottom corner, she'd scrawled one word. Still. No context. No caption. Just that. And for some reason, it hit harder than anything else. Still here? Still trying. Still tied to something, even if frayed. I didn't respond. Not right away. But the next morning, I printed the painting. Framed it. Hung it in the hallway. Not as a symbol of reconciliation. Not as some dramatic forgiveness. But as a reminder that some people don't get neat endings. Just small, quiet chapters that don't erase what came before, but don't burn it down either. Update 6 months later. We're not close. We don't text every day. We don't hug when we run into each other. We don't pretend the past didn't happen. But sometimes she stops by. She brings Max treats and stays just long enough to finish her coffee. Then she leaves. And I let her. Because grace doesn't always look like a second chance. Sometimes it's just a door that's no longer locked. And that's enough.